to the RunRX podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running.
Welcome back to the RunRX podcast. I'm your host, Coach Caroline, and I'm here with Coach Valerie. Coach, we were talking recently about this concept of having to have a reason to run. And you came across something in your run this morning that kind of brought up those conversations. Can you talk about that? Tell our listeners about what you saw and what you experienced and what you were thinking.
Sure. So, first and foremost, most people kind of get into running as a way to sign up for an event or as a way to get fit maybe, or just, maybe get social, right?
Right.
And so, and that's how by the way, guys, that's how I started running. We got a group wanted to run or, starting to run. Had to train for an event or 5K marathon, whatever the distance. And then all of a sudden you kind of enter this world of like, it's always about having a race on the schedule. So that was my world for years.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So, all of a sudden it's like you've got races. And so then your running becomes training. Like I'm always training for something. So then you kind of have that accountability to yourself to get out and get those runs in because you've got a race coming up, right? And then a lot of people go through, they call it the post-marathon blues, post-race blues, where you finish the race and then you're kind of like, well, what do I do now? Like, How do I just run to run? So then you immediately sign up for another race. And then all of a sudden you're back in that same, and that cycle is exciting and it kind of keeps you on a schedule and motivated and going. And then, so what happens, when either you burn out, you get injured, like just recreational running.
Right. Right.
And then, although I do always say that's when you realize that maybe you actually really love just running and didn't realize it because you were always running for something. Right.
Right.
And so like last week, I saw a group of runners and they had stopped at the water fountain and I had already done my run. So I just casually runner to runner. Hey guys, just out for a run, or why are you, anybody training for anything? Because that's the common conversation.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, right? Because immediately, like one lady said to me, "Oh, I'm not training for anything. I'm just running because I like to eat." Like she threw that out at me. And then someone else was like, "Well, I want to train for something, but I haven't signed up for anything." And it was like, I didn't mean to
put you on the spot, right? It's like they have to, like just being able to say, "Oh no, I just like running." Like it's almost like that's crazy.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because like my license
and the memes and the jokes,
my license plate is love to run, and my husband hates driving my car because he's like, no one just likes to go running, and I'm like, yes, they do.
I think they secretly do. Yeah, I agree.
So, and then on the other end, by the way, and I know there's plenty of you guys out there that are like, well, actually, I'm one of those runners. I just enjoy running. So we know you're out there, right? And the challenge becomes there's a lot of people really that aren't training for a race or don't even want to sign up for a running group, just want to walk out their door and just go running. And so it's fun to have, they're part of the running community as well. We're just not as active, I guess, because when you are in the world of racing, you see the same people all the time. So then it becomes like kind of a social scene, right? It's like, I know I'm going to see that person, or maybe you're like in that same age group. So they're kind of your competitor. So there's so much fun to that side of running as well. And then for us at RunRX, we usually only meet people when they're unfortunately injured. They're not able to train for their race, or they're not able to get into their running group, or participate. So that was something I saw this morning. Somebody was obviously injured or hurt or having a hard time. So as you called it, the host of the running group, whoever, whatever this running group was out running, and you could tell people had paired up with people to run at a certain pace. And then this guy was in the back walking next to a woman, and she was running, not well, but obviously she wanted to make it through to the end. And my thought was, there's someone that would really benefit from joining RunRX. Because what happens is when you're injured or when you can't do what you're wanting to do, whether it's train for a race or, like we said, just walk out and run. When you go back to the foundation of what is running, you realize that that was a perfect opportunity for her and for him both, by the way, that instead of just trying to get her to finish, because that's what we all get to, right? I finished, I got through it. That would have been a great opportunity.
I grind it out. You know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah.
You push through.
Yeah. They should have been doing a 1, 2, 3 drill. This is when she can start working on like her movement itself. And that's that's kind of where we want to get back to. It's like, whether you run with a group or whether you run on your own or whatever your running is, that foundation of running is really what unites the community, or should, right? It's the running itself. But I find more what initially unites people is kind of suffering. Whether, it's like, let's grind this run out or let's get through it. It's almost this
feigned hatred of running when you don't
really
hate it.
Well, it's more like if it's not, for some people, they'll say, well, running's easier for me than others, right? Or I'm not really a runner. We hear this all the time. I'm not really a runner, but I want to be a runner. And really what you want is to feel better while you're running. And then it goes back to, it's because your movement, like once you move better, you're going to want to run more, or, however you want to think about it. But first, let's have the conversation of just the running. And once you're in with us, like once you have that community, and of course, we're a virtual community because in the real world, we know this is not the conversation happening in the running groups, right? It's more like, how many miles are we running, or what are you wearing? What shoes are you wearing? And let's just get through this run. And some runs feel great. Like you just have this great run, and other runs, not so good. And when you come in like with us, it's like we work on so much the running in the beginning, especially, that then it becomes people come back and tell us how they felt during their run. Not just that they finished it, but they're like, oh, I was able to hold my line and my pulse felt light. And it's such a different conversation, right?
Sorry, dog is barking at me and I had to mute myself. But yeah, absolutely. It's a totally different conversation. And that's what I really love about our RunRX is that you can go out there with your group, or you can go out there alone. And you can have that epiphany or the thought or a question. And just like you would with your running group. So I used to run with this running group that she's talking about. You come back and you say, oh, that turn or that hill or whatever. And you have that conversation about what I was thinking about to get up that hill or whatever. You can do that in RunRX, even though it's virtual. And I think that's really powerful because we do have quite a few runners that do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the best part, is to be able to go for your run. Like all of us love that. That's part of running, is that sharing, right? I mean, so many of us.
Right, the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so many people that are in a running group, after you go for coffee and you have the conversation, like how, different things that happen in the run. I mean, the only other runners care about that.
Right.
And so we just kind of add to that element of, it's not even just that you got through the run, which of course we're excited about, but it's how you felt during the run, how you connected with running, how you keep improving in the running itself. And that's just, to me, like that extra bit that, and the accountability. So not only are we going to be like, hey, did you get your run in, but you're also like, did you do your warm up? Did you do your drills? Did you do your post run? Instead of having post run coffee, we work together on our post run strength and recovery exercises.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, like you were talking about the accountability.
Right.
And people think, oh, well, it's virtual, I have no accountability. No, you do, because we're going to be saying, have you checked in? Have you done any, what have you done today? What's going on here? What's going on there? And you can also say, this week I'm going to follow the plan, or I'm starting with the immersion again, or whatever you're doing. And then it will, like, we can hold you, like, remind you, not hold your feet to the fire. I hate saying like that, but we can be your accountability group.
Well, the funny part is we're the accountability to the accessory part of your run. And this is, I think, the hardest part of the running for most people, to be honest. Most of our runners, it's not that they didn't get their run in. It's that they didn't do the warm up. They didn't do the post run recovery. They're not doing the posture work in between that they need to be doing to hold for their run. And that's what's the other part, like these little exercises that I give you guys and the drills and the strength, it's not traditional exercises. You're not going to go to the gym and they're going to be like, all right, guys, we're going to do pulling.
Right.
It's never right. So it's like, why do I need to do that? Well, I need to do that, number one, to prevent injury, but second, to keep improving your ability to keep running. And that's the accountability part you need. Like you've got your running group to meet you to go do your miles, or your running partner, or yourself, your running watch.
Yeah.
So that on us, we're like, that part of your run is what you do, whether you run alone or you run with friends, you run with your dog, whatever. However, it's that accessory work that we all tend to skip, to be honest. I mean, the rolling, the stretching, the drills, that kind of, and by the way, it's funny, like it's not funny, but there's right now, both things are going on. Track and field world championships just finished. And now we've got at the same time, the top 100-mile races. So both extremes, right, of running 100 miles, 100 meters and everything in between. And all of these people, what they share and they talk about it, their PT is there, their chiro is there.
Yeah.
They have a team of people. And I tell people, like, we as runners, that part, that recovery, that working on yourself, that's what RunRX is. We just do it where you do it yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And that's a great place to end it, because we are, as we've mentioned in the last couple of episodes, you can work with us right now. We're kind of in what is known in the industry is called evergreen, which means we're taking people on an ongoing basis. There's not a certain time that you have to join. So if you're listening to this and it's a Sunday afternoon and you think, God, I've wanted to join, go ahead and check out our website at runrx.fit, or go to runrx.fit/immersion. That's IMMERSION-2023. And that will get you to our page, and you can just start working with us, and you can spend some time going through the immersion, learning how to do the work for that we teach you in the first 28 days, and then you'll stay with us in the membership to make sure that you know exactly what you have to do to run pain-free. And if after that period of time you don't want to stick around with us, we understand. You can go about your merry way. But at least during that period of time, you have the accountability, you have the plans, and you know exactly what you need to do to run pain-free. And that's what we're here for. So if you haven't already, go ahead and like our Facebook group at RunRX. It's RunRX Fit. Go to our Instagram. We're also now going to be on Twitter, and we're going to be also going on to YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel there and subscribe to our podcast. So we're everywhere, guys. You can't miss us, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.